Welcome to another episode of Landlord TV. This is your host, Rob Wells from the Law Office of Robert Wells. We help landlords and property managers with their landlord-tenant problems. In this video, we're going to talk about single-family homeowner landlords, how you can preserve your exemptions under the Tenant Protection Act of 2019, or also known as AB 1482. Before we go into this video, landlords, property managers, do you know what the Tenants Protection Act of 2019 is? Do you know how to preserve your exemptions under the Tenants Protection Act so you don't have to comply with the just cause, eviction, and rent control elements in California law? If you don't know, or if you don't even know what I'm talking about here or your exemptions, please feel free to contact us today and sign up for a case review. Back to the video. Now, this week we had a couple callers today, a couple different types of single family home residential tenancy situations here where the owner was curious why they might have to comply with the Tenants Protection Act of 2019, or they just weren't sure, or they didn't even know what I was talking about. So let me give you a summary here. California has statewide eviction and rent control. It was passed in 2019 and it's called the Tenant Protection Act of 2019. And as it sounds, it changed the law to the effect that it requires what's called just cause eviction, meaning a landlord before 2019 could just terminate a month-to-month tenancy, for example, for any reason. Or if it was a lease, at the end of the term of the lease, the landlord could choose not to renew the lease. What the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 does is after 1 year, or in certain circumstances, 2 years, if a tenant's lived there, they build these protections where a landlord just cannot terminate a tenancy without stating just cause on their notice, or there's 4 no-fault just causes that the tenant doesn't have to do, but specific reasons why a landlord can terminate a tenancy, basically. Now, there are a number of exclusions for certain landlords and certain types of tenancies, for example. And in this case, we're going to talk about the ones for single-family homes, your ordinary house with no other units on it, or roommate scenarios, okay? So, depending on how you rent your single family home out will determine if you're exempt or not. The most common exemption is the landlord rents out an entire home to one family, basically their single family home. This exemption is what is called in the legalese actually is the separate but alienable exemption. And it basically says that, hey, landlords that rent a unit that can be sold on its own, basically, without any other units, is exempt from the Tenants Protection Act. The majority of our landlords actually qualify for this exemption. However, there is one thing that these landlords must do, and as of January 1st, 2020, they have to put an exemption or disclosure in their lease stating that, hey, I am exempt from the Tenants Protection Act and I'm an individual owner and don't own the property as a corporation or in a real estate investment trust. Okay. Most of our landlords can qualify for that. If you're if you own your single family home in a corporation, basically you will not qualify. And there's certain other prerequisites, but lo and behold, that is the most, it's not famous. It's the most common exemption. Where landlords screw up is they don't have this exemption in their lease. And we do a lot of work with getting that exemption in the lease so that landlord is exempt. Another exemption for single family home type tenancies is we have landlords that actually rent rooms in their home. The landlord actually lives in the house, and it's commonly called house hacking. Well, those landlords are exempt under the Tenants Protection Act as there is an exemption for landlords who have a primary residence in their single family home where either they share a bathroom with the tenant or kitchen facilities. So if you have a 5-bedroom home and you reside in one of them and rent 4 bedrooms where the tenants either have to share a bathroom or most commonly a kitchen with the tenants, that property is fully exempt under the Tenants Protection Act. And unlike the single family homes or the separate but alienable exemption, they don't have to do anything to get their exemption. They just have it. Another scenario where a single family homeowner can be exempt is if they rent no more than 2 bedrooms or in-law units or accessory dwelling units. This exemption doesn't depend on whether or not the tenants share a kitchen or bathroom like the previous exemption we just talked about. So the owner could actually, in fact, have a separate in-law unit or efficiency granny unit. You know, let's say it's in the backyard, for example. They can have 2 of those and not share a bathroom or kitchen and still be exempt under the Tenants Protection Act, because as long as the landlord lives at the property as their primary residence, they're exempt as well too. Landlords that actually rent rooms that don't reside at the property are not going to be exempt under the Tenants Protection Act. And that's probably the most misconceived perception that I have talking with landlords is, I thought it was a single family home and I'm exempt. Well, and I have to explain to them, well, you don't live on the property, and unfortunately the state has basically regulated, renting rooms and so forth like that. The state almost treats you as you're renting out a multifamily property if you're renting out individual rooms, and if you don't live there, that's a different type of tenancy versus the landlord living there. So unfortunately, those folks get cut out. So these exemptions can be quite tricky, and it really vary factually, and also too, this doesn't factor in localized eviction and rent control, within your municipality. So if you're trying to figure out if you're exempt under, from just cause eviction and rental increase requirements in your locality or under state law, please feel free to give us a call. If you feel like this video has helped you in any way, please like, share, and subscribe to it, and to our channel, and share this video. Until next time, we'll be in touch. Take care.